Hello there! It's Friday, which means it's time once again for the best movie podcast ever. The only movie podcast to offer objective and hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, Konrad. With me as always, together in electric dreams, is Anthony James.
Guten Morgen, Konrad. How are you?
We were rehearsing that before we started, and Anthony's nailed it. Guten Morgen indeed. Guten Morgen, Alice.
Jackpot.
He's not in this movie, unfortunately.
Paul Lutz, or whatever his name is. Yeah, he's not in it.
Would have loved a Bartos here.
Yeah.
We're talking about hackers this week. We're in hacker mode. There's plenty of hacking going on in the. Well, actually, we're filming this or filming. I guess we are filming.
We are
If
filming.
we really wanted to be grand, recording is how I'd probably say it.
Yeah.
Filming, I feel like, kind of gives it a sense of pomp that I don't think.
Yeah,
we
there's no
necessarily
film involved.
deserve.
There's no film involved. Yeah.
No. I mean, there's no film involved in many Hollywood pictures these days, to be honest. So you know,
Ridley Scott's turning in his grave, although he's not dead.
take that. No, he's not. I'm gonna leave that. I almost said something that would have got me in hot water then. I'm gonna ignore it. Well, Anthony, you have been trying to get me to watch this movie, or mentioning this movie at the very least, for since we started After Dark, almost. I feel like you
Listeners,
we
I
watched
have
Dark.
been saying it. We finally got there.
We finally got there. We're here to watch Who Am I? Not the Jackie Chan movie. I've made that joke multiple times across our podcasting career, and I'm going to continue making it into this episode. It's the Baron Bodar and Jon Jeffries 2014 hacker movie. So I say, let's talk about some gosh darn movies.
Guten Morgen.
Good enough. Movies. We're here to talk about them.
We are.
In this case, as we've said, movies about hacking. Now, we need to do a brief credibility check first, because if we're going to talk about a movie with hacking in it, we need to establish that we know what we're talking about. So, Anthony and listeners, this is straight off the dome piece. I haven't prepped Anthony for this. I haven't prepped for this either. Name your top 5 hacking movies. Go.
Whoa, okay. Okay. Now, there's a lot of movies with hacking in them. But
yeah, you can have those. That's fine.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure there's a bit of hacking in Cats and Dogs. That's one.
Yeah, I've got no way of fact checking this, so that's not true. I have the internet, but I'm not going to fact check it, so we'll just accept these as correct.
Well, Mr. Robot. That's not a film.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's not a film, but we'll count it. That's fine.
I'm pretty sure there is some hacking in Fight Club at some point, which hacking of the system, we'll say.
Sure. Hacking of social structures and financial institutions via explosives.
Yeah. I'm actually going to be honest with you, Conrad. I don't have hacking movies off the dome piece like I do, of course, we know from the past episodes, bowling movies. I don't have hacking movies off the dome piece there.
There's you haven't got the ability to recall quotes from Kingpin off the top of your head or the equivalent of quotes from Kingpin off the top of your head for hacking movies, is what you're saying.
No. Would Hitch count? I know, because I think that pickup artists view themselves as hackers of some kind.
I don't know. No, I feel like that's. I was being fairly generous with allowing you Mr. Robot, but Hitch definitely doesn't have hacking in it.
They're hacking the system of dating, is what I mean.
I mean, The Matrix is a pretty that's a hacking movie.
Is it?
There's 100%. Yes. There's loads of hacking in that movie. They're literally hackers.
What are they? Oh yeah. But I mean, do they? Is there ever hacking traditional sitting at the keyboard hacking in the Matrix?
I mean, yeah, the event,
I know that's what they are,
point,
but
yeah, I mean, there's definitely hacking in that movie.
Pretty metaphorical.
It is. Yeah, I mean, it is metaphorical as well. But I mean, to The Matrix. Have you never seen the movie Hackers?
I don't think I have.
Angelina Jolie.
No.
And Fisher Stevens. Literally the only thing I remember about that movie is a bit where they're having a hacking contest, and someone gets a virus, and a message flashes on their screen saying "mess with the best, die like the rest." And for some reason, I saw that when I was 7 years old back in the mid-90s, and that has stayed with me for the rest of my life. Just that was a fucking cool thing to put on someone's screen when you've just beaten them in a hacking contest. And of course, Timothy Oliphant's character in Die Hard 4 is a very famous hacker.
Yes, of course. Well,
He hacks
most
traffic
action
lights,
films,
I think.
most action films are hacking films, because
Yeah.
you've always got a moment where you're driving through somewhere and you need a gate to open, and then all of a sudden they get into the
Absolutely.
system.
Well, this is why I thought that we were safe having this conversation, like just firing from the hip, because I was like, literally pick an action movie from the last 20 years.
I know.
And someone's going to be like, run a bypass, and they'll be like, and then
Enhance.
they'll be like.
I was
the
thinking
green
of
text goes across the
actual
screen.
like films about hackers. Is the thing.
I don't know if there's that many, honestly, and normally they're awful. But I mean, we're here to talk about one of them. It's Who Am I? So this is the second time you've seen this movie. Is that right?
No, first time. I've never seen it before.
Have you not seen this before? Oh,
No,
wow. Okay.
I was waiting to watch it.
Oh, you're saving yourself for this.
I'll save
for this
myself for
experience.
this. Yeah.
Okay, so we were both coming in pretty much just completely. Well, I knew basically nothing about this movie other than it was about hackers. Did you know anything going in?
No, all I knew some sort of background stuff about the movie and about obviously the creators, but not about the actual film itself.
Yeah. So I mean, I tried. If I'm being 100% honest with myself, I tried with pretty limited success to not come in with any preconceived notions about what I thought a hacker movie written by Baran bo Odar and Jan Fries would look like, because obviously my only experience of them is Dark, and I didn't want to try and reverse engineer what they did with Dark into a hacker movie, and it's probably for the best that I did, that I didn't, because it's quite a. I'm not going to call it a straightforward movie.
No,
but it's quite by the numbers in a lot of ways, which is not to say that's not a bad thing, but it's a very sort of traditional movie, I think.
it is, and I think actually for this one, this is quite an old movie, so I wouldn't mind speaking spoilers from the start. Conrad, what do you think?
Yeah, okay, we can say spoilers from the start. So if you haven't seen this, I honestly had to acquire this by illicit means, because I couldn't find it anywhere.
Well, I have it on DVD, so that's why.
Okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, so normally I don't like doing that, but I was like, this movie is not available anywhere in a way that's going to get to me in a week. So, but so it's spoilers from the start if you haven't seen it, or if you're waiting for your DVD to show up in the mail.
And Dark fans who watch the channel, I'm sure you want to see this film, so maybe you'll want to come back and listen to this after you've seen it, or you'll just, I think a few weeks ago we talked full spoilers for something, and then someone said in the comments, didn't spoil the film at all, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Okay.
Nice.
Yes, nice. Yes, good. Okay, so this film, I think that, at the end, obviously, there's a couple of little look what we did, and the reveals of double crossing. I don't know how you would say it. This reveals that the motives were different than we thought.
Yeah.
Now that was obviously
a rare example of a double twist in the movie.
We twist them again.
There is a twist.
There is a twist. There is another twist. So there's a double twist at the end of this movie, which I genuinely really enjoyed. Having said that, though, you are right. If you think of a hacker movie, this is very paint by numbers, and I think that interestingly, I'm going to do a video at some point, talking about this and Dark, and talking about what I think for 1899. So I don't want to get too much into this at the minute. We'll just talk about the movie. But it is similar to Dark in this way. In Dark, we were always talking about different references and different things that they must have been inspired by. This is the exact same as that.
Absolutely.
Baran bo Odar and Jan Fries definitely draw from their inspiration heavily.
Do you think they saw Fight Club before they watched this movie?
Yeah, that's it. Definitely Fight Club. Definitely Fight Club is one of them. There was a whole load of things which I just kept thinking, oh, that's that. It did feel like they were heavily inspired, and you know what? It became its own thing, but very much was in the vein of a lot of things I'd already seen before.
Yeah. And I think that's absolutely right. I think it wears its influences quite openly on its sleeve. And it tells a decent story, I thought. So just to briefly go over the plot then. So you've got a hacker played by Tom Schilling, who his character's name is Benjamin. So most of the actors in this, to be honest, I looked up most of these actors to see if I would know them in anything else. The only one that had been in anything that seemed funny was Elias Mubarak, who was in a movie called, I think, Suck It Shakespeare is the English translation, and it's like a German raunchy, like American Pie style comedy, from what I could tell, which seemed very funny. But so most of these actors I haven't seen in anything else. But Tom
except
Schilling
for a couple of dark actors popping up.
Yeah, there's a couple of dark who, don't you worry about that. We'll come back to them. I've got some things to say about Peter Doppler's actor. I'll say that much. But so it basically tells the story of Benjamin, who is a young hacker, and he joins a group, an established group of hackers who kind of want to make a name for themselves in the world of hacking. Yeah. And as things often do in these kinds of movies, things spiral out of control until the police and the Russian mafia get involved, and things escalate and eventually become violent. And there's a big kind of, well, it's not really an action set piece. There's some twists and turns in the story, but when I say it's telling a pretty basic story, I don't think that's necessarily criticism of it. That's just the reality of the story it's trying to tell. It's not trying to do anything particularly interesting, and I don't think any of the characters are really the reason you're here. I think. Would you say that's fair to say?
Yeah, I personally,
they're pretty one-dimensional.
Yeah, like I'm put it this way, I'm not going to remember Paul as I remember Tyler Durden.
Paul. Wait, which one's? Oh, Paul's the hardware man who's always like saying things are a bad idea before getting involved in it.
Yeah, Paul. Yeah. But I'm not going to.
The other one, the tattoo man, whose name I've already forgotten.
Yeah, we'll put it this way, right? The film is called Who Am I? Because that's the individual handle of Benjamin. Now,
yeah.
I don't even remember the character of, like, technically the character's Who Am I, really. I'm not even gonna remember that as like an iconic thing. The characters were, although well drawn for the film, it very much they fit within the genre and therefore didn't come across as the most memorable characters to me. But I will say I loved the. Now it's interesting because it's very different to Dark. The pace of the storytelling. I really liked the first sort of few, maybe 5-10 minutes really rattled through, especially even later on in the film whenever you were going into all the political aspects of things going on. They didn't really stick around to explain everything what was happening. It was just like, okay, this is a big government building, we need to go into there, we need to get that, let's just go and do it. And I liked that about it as well. It seemed like they were trying to fit it all in, and I think it worked for the pace of it. One thing I will say as well, and I'm giving you a lot here to respond to, Konrad, sorry about this, but one thing I will say as well, gosh, don't these writers love a voiceover? Oh,
there's some storytelling devices in this that they go back to again and again, and the voiceover is a classic. It's funny you mentioned the voiceover. That's the first thing I'll respond to, because the voiceover plus the opening of this movie, where we open on a scene of a bunch of characters who have been killed, and then cut to and we see Benjamin discovering these murders, and that very clearly shows like tattoos on the knuckle of one of them, which is going to become important later when we find out which character that is. And then it cuts to him having a conversation with like a police lady, and me being in like, and this is you mentioned last week that, you know, I can sometimes predict the plot of a movie just by looking at like the kind of, and you know, I think you give me too much credit for that. It's normally quite formulaic movies. This one absolutely tripped me up because I was so in the mindset of like, right, this is Baron Boyardee and Jan Fries. There's going to be some shit going on here. And I saw him discovering the murders and then talking to the police officer, and I thought it was two flashbacks within each other. So I thought the him discovering the bodies was the present, and then that Benjamin was flashing back to the conversation with the police officer, and then that conversation was telling us the story that we were then seeing underneath that in the movie. So I was like, the cogs were going, the brain was whirring away. As it turns out, that's not what was happening. It was just he finds the bodies and then he goes and talks to the police officer, and that's the framing device for the movie. But
although very interesting that your brain went there, and I understand why it did, because in the storytelling style of these writers, we're comparing it to Dark, and we said I'm not going to do it too much, but come on,
we're going to do it constantly.
Constantly,
Like,
obviously,
there's no way around it.
people who watch our channel even kind of want us to do that, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with these I won't say creators, but this is a film, so just the writers, they in Dark, actually, it was all. Now, you're gonna laugh at me saying this word, but it was all linear, right?
It was very linear. Yeah.
Because like. Even though
that was perhaps the biggest twist of all. It's just a linear story.
Yeah, even though everything was happening at different moments and stuff, like the time and dates of actually everything was happening on went together. So the idea of like showing the end of the movie first, like they did in this, where they showed the bodies, that wouldn't have happened in Dark. Because in Dark, you only saw the things that were happening on that date. You know what I mean? So yeah. I understand why you thought that. I understand why you thought that. Because we never would have in Dark saw the future in that way. You know what I mean? Yeah. I know there's a lot of ironic phrasing I'm using here because of Dark, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. And yeah, so I was coming in possibly giving it more. No, I don't want to say more credit than it was worth, because it's not trying to do anything super clever with its framing. I just was expecting it to do a bit more than that actually did. But it's quite a linear story, and you're absolutely right that the pacing is pretty good for the most part. It doesn't really spend any time dwelling on things. It's just like, here's them doing some cool hacker stuff, and most of those kind of set pieces are pretty compelling. I did feel like I didn't really like any of the characters in the hacker group. I didn't really have very much affection for them, which was a problem I had throughout most of the movie, to be honest. And I'm not going to talk about it right this second, but I wanted to say that in terms of the pacing, generally really good. I thought it maintained a pretty good clip. But the kind of romantic subplot and the way they kept going back to that, I was constantly like, there is no indication that this woman likes Benjamin. At no point in this movie. And then when it gets to the first twist at the end, I was like, all right, fair enough, you got me. Yeah, and we'll talk about that twist in more detail in a minute, because it does, obviously we have to go at that properly. But when it gets to that twist, I was like, all right, you're off the hook, movie. That relationship didn't need to be believable. And then when the second twist happens, I was like, wait a minute, you just put yourself back on the hook. That relationship doesn't make any sense. But having said that, the whole story is retold by the character. So I think if we're being charitable, we can say it's an example of an unreliable narrator. But I don't know if it's not just bad writing, to be honest. But,
well, there was definitely a lot going on. In fact, it reminded me a little bit, you know how like the characters weren't really memorable because the actual pace of the thing and like the complication of a lot of the hacking stuff they were doing took the forefront. I think that reminded me a little bit of Primer. Like the characters in Primer aren't necessarily the most memorable to me, but the things that they're doing, I really love that film and how they did it. So maybe it's similar to this. I will say that it's interesting that they have like the Joker masks, because this was made before Joker, obviously, but the Joker masks, and then the idea of like revealing that the relationship with the woman was made up, even though it was second twist, notwithstanding, but the reveal of the relationship being made up is exactly what happened in Joker a few years later. So interesting.
That's true.
So Joker stole that from this, and it stole the stuff from King of Comedy and Taxi Driver. So literally, Joker has not much.
Not an original bone in its body. Is essentially what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. So really, really interesting there. I will say, Baron Bodor was approached by Netflix to. Now, this is really strange when you think about what actually happened. They liked this film, and Netflix approached them to create a TV series version of this. Now, whether or not they wanted them to make the exact same thing again, or to like spin off, or just inspired by this, Netflix basically wanted a hacker show from them. And then Baron Bodor was like, no, I'm not doing the same thing again. And then like they came back to him a while later again, and then they were like, okay, well, what about this? And pitched Dark. And I thought to myself, oh my god, Netflix, you didn't even know what you were asking these people to do. Like, you asked them for like a run-of-the-mill hacker.
Into one of the best TV shows of the last 20 years.
Exactly.
Pure accident.
You just happened to choose the right horse, because like, let's be honest, like this film is not dark. I enjoyed it, and there's a lot of promise here, but there's no way Netflix would have thought they were getting the product they got when they approached this guy.
Oh no, Dark. I'm constantly stunned that Dark even got 3 seasons, to be honest, because it seems like the exact kind of show that they'd see the first season, they'd be like, "What? I thought this was going to be about hackers," and then they'd just be like, "Cancelled immediately." like, back to making movies in Germany. You two. It's funny that you talk about that though. Netflix bringing those two on to spearhead a kind of TV version of this, because after this movie came out, Warner Brothers acquired the rights to remake this make it a Western remake.
Yeah.
And currently, David Goya, who is the guy who wrote Jumper and which Batman did he write?
David S. Goya. He wrote The Dark Knight.
Oh, Dark Knight. That's right. Yeah. He might have been Batman Begins as well. I'm not sure.
He wrote all three. Wrote all 3 with Chris Nolan.
Okay, but yeah, so he's attached to direct.
Really?
So I don't know. It's weird. This is one of those situations where I feel like this doesn't really need a remake. I mean, no movies need a Western remake. Just watch the original movie. It's probably better. But also, if this got a Western remake, everyone would be like, "Well, that's fucking Fight Club." So, like, what are you doing?
It's true. There is a lot of Fight Club there. Yeah, I know what you mean. I did also just see that David S. Goya directed Blade Trinity, so there is that.
He did, yeah. His directing chops are not great. He's a good writer, but I don't know if he's a good director.
I mean, you can spot the talent, like, triple the Chaperone H, as they call it.
No, the only good thing about that movie is Ryan Reynolds. Triple H isn't good in that movie. I vaguely recall Blade wears a red turtleneck in that movie, which seemed like way too much color for that character to be wearing. I don't know if that was David Goya's influence that made that decision. But either way, I wouldn't trust him with this. So, okay, Warner Brothers possibly making that. I've mentioned it there, so let's talk about the David Fincher influence. And again, I don't want to talk too much about the twist because we can get fully into
David
that.
Fincher, yeah.
So I mentioned before that how this movie kind of tripped me up because basically as soon as I saw it was more than one frame. I think it was probably about 4 or 5 frames where Benjamin was like popping up in different shots, like in flashes of light. You'd see a frame of himself popping up in scenes where he wasn't actually present, very much like Tyler Durden in Fight Club.
Exactly.
And I was like, all right. This is not my first rodeo, guys. I've been here before, and I immediately started being like, okay, so we're gonna do a Fight Club thing where none of these characters are real, and this is all happening in his head.
Yeah.
And I think they did a great job of capturing that feeling of Fight Club and of things not being how they seemed, which I really enjoyed. Actually, I found that bit really compelling, and I think it's really interesting seeing David Fincher's influence on Baron Brodar as like a director, because it seems like the most prominent one, and I think he does a great job of capturing his like visual styles.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The David Fincher thing is something I noticed straight away. It's funny. I think that the Fight Club thing, obviously they were heavily inspired by that. But then when they made the reveal of like the Tyler Durden-esque, reveal with none of them existed, it's like it was too obvious because the Fight Club, stuff was there from very early for me, and so when that happened, I was like, of course that happened, and then the old double switcheroo, I really liked that, and I thought that it was. Now, maybe it was a bit on the nose, like the building in of the mental health issues with the mom and like building all that in. Like perhaps that was a little on the nose. Having said that, in the moment where they revealed everything wasn't real, no chance I actually thought it was going to double switcheroo me. So,
absolutely not. No, I was like that first twist when they're having the conversation with the police officer where he's like coming clean and being like, I have a family history of, I think it's schizophrenia that his
I think so, yeah.
His mum had, or multiple personality disorder, but and he's like encouraged to come clean about it, and then he's like, and then this big revelation: these people aren't real. You've imagined all this in your head, and he's like, yes, yeah, that's true, and it does the standard flashback to all the scenes where he thought he was talking to other people and he wasn't. And I was like, I've seen Fight Club, and there's me like patting myself on the back, being like, Konrad, you've done it again. and then suddenly the goddamn double twist. Yeah. they double back on themselves. Like, actually, he saw this coming. And I will say, like, okay, so I have thoughts on the double twist. So I'll just finish my train of thought there and say, so he doubles back on himself and reveals that the people do exist, and all of this was him playing the police detective to essentially get himself and his crew out of harm's way of both the Russian mafia and I think it's Interpol or Europol or something that she works for, this like anti-hacker unit. But because he feeds them the famous hacker whose name I've now forgotten, Miss MRX feeds him MRX and like the Russian mafia, and that's enough to satisfy her. Lovely scene where MRX is arrested in an American city, and the way you know it's an American city is because he's wearing like a Virginia State like university hoodie or something. It's like,
I think it said New York actually, I think, but also
it did say New York. Wasn't
whenever they're in American cities in like foreign language films, they always film the camera pointing up because to show how big the buildings are.
But yeah, and you also, because they don't want to catch any road signs that are definitely written in German.
yeah.
Like that was Berlin. I've been to Berlin a number of times. I'm fairly sure that was Berlin. But so he feeds her that, and it turns out that they are all alive, and they all get together on a boat to have their kind of usual suspects ending. He's dyed his hair. He's got the girl. The rest of the gang is still alive. It's a happy ending for everyone. When that happened, I have to say, it's a bit convoluted. And I don't know if it really works as a satisfying conclusion, but when they start showing the little hints they dropped that he was going to double switch it, and you know, like the bullets
I noticed that straight away. I noticed the bullets straight away.
They definitely were planting little hints that you could have followed if you were paying attention. I clearly wasn't paying enough attention because I was too busy congratulating myself on figuring out the one twist I thought there was going to be, and so I didn't think in my wildest dreams that they'd double down on it, but they did, and they got me.
You know what I think's funny about that, Konrad, is anyone who followed our Journey in After Dark podcast for Dark knows that there's almost nothing in that show you didn't predict, right?
Yeah.
But we went to a way less convoluted film about hackers, and you couldn't predict this ending.
No. I don't know how that happened, to be honest. They caught me napping, is what they did. They caught me napping on this one. I was like, all right, it's going to be a standard David Fincher thing. We've all seen Fight Club, guys. Get on with it. And then they got me. They got me with it. But it was good. It was a good ending, I thought.
What did you think? What did you think about the visualization of the chats within the hacker space, where it was all done like on a train, and then they had like their masks on and stuff to visualize the internet space. So
there was a lot of stuff in this that you could feel the budgetary constraints of making a fairly low budget movie. I think. There weren't really any action set pieces, and a lot of it felt quite cheap, not in a bad way, but it felt like they were operating on a budget. But then the cyberspace train, I thought was a very, very cool way to visualize like the dark web. I think they didn't necessarily need to do it the way they did it, and I think it spoke to a very, very strong creative vision at the core to be like, no, this is how we're going to visualize this social space. And I think it's more than just that, although I love the scenes where they went into the dark web and talking to MRX or whichever other hackers they were talking to. I think that kind of assuredness with their visual style kind of filtered through into a lot of the hacking as well, where with I mean, I can't claim to be a hacker, but I work in IT, so there's some stuff like in hacking movies that you see and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, and it makes you roll your eyes because it's how ridiculous. This didn't ever really have that, and I think
very realistic in ways as well. I thought.
Well, it was realistic, but I think the thing that it did that was interesting, so you look at something like Mr. Robot, and Mr. Robot like tries to be very realistic, and I think for the most part does a good job of it, but it also runs the risk of like alienating people who don't know anything about computers, because sometimes
even the episode names like
exactly, like if you're a layperson, you just want someone to be like, I'm hacking the mainframe, and then that's enough. Like you don't need to get like, they don't need to tell you what fucking like the BIOS is or whatever. This does it in a different way by like abstracting the hacking into to and making it into this this meta. There's a moment where I can't actually remember why they're doing it, but he's giving something to MRX, and it is represented in that cyberspace. It's the pregnant horse, I think it's called, where it's like a Trojan virus within a Trojan that has a back door in it, and it's represented by his character in this space, literally giving a model of a horse to another to MRX, and it's a really cool way of visualizing it that just gets around all that technical MacGuffin nonsense and kind of just visualizes what's actually happening, which I thought was a really, really smart idea, and it really worked for me.
Yeah, no, I love that as well. I thought the actual moments where they are I thought before we leave that cyberspace, actually, I also thought it was just cool just to mention whenever he was impersonating MRX as well, and like MRX was trying to get through into the carriage, he wouldn't let him. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think
that's another great example of them like visualizing it rather than trying to get technical with it.
Exactly, and also rather than just showing a load of text on the screen of them talking to each other. But I think that the moments where they do show him hacking and they do show him sort of entering script in whatever program he's using, or even just the PowerShell or whatever he's using at the time, I think that actually was pretty realistic, because they were very limited with how much of that they showed, and it wasn't like the general clicking 3 keys for every 5 lines of code and like the popping up of 20 million windows that there's no way anyone could control what's happening on the screen. It was actually quite realistic. Like he had one thing open, he was typing in something, clicked enter, the program ran. Like I actually thought it was pretty good. I wouldn't expect anything less from Baron Bodor. I wouldn't expect anything less from them, you know.
I think there's that one moment where they're at the party and they're sitting, and he does have like a million windows pop up as he hacks the lights off, and I was a bit like, okay, but that was the only moment in the entire film.
Yes, I remember that moment as well. Actually,
that seems kind of dumb. But yeah, so I think the way they depicted hacking was very smart, and they had like these kind of cool like breaking it, like essentially like kind of like mini heists where they like break into things, like the bit where they break into like some like far right convention was kind of brilliant. Like I found that bit really, really funny. I'm always up for anything that makes fun of Hitler, and we got that in this. So that was very enjoyable.
The hacking into there, I thought it was so funny when he went into that like sort of basically the Nazi thing. How he was like sort of, he was saying just act normal, like no one will notice you, and he just like he just walks up, plugs in the USB. Like it's farcical, but it's maybe not realistic. I don't think you could maybe do that in real life, but for the film it worked very well.
I mean, they do mention once in this movie that like I think it's Max who says it, like the kind of handsome charming character says that like 70% of hacking is just social engineering, just convincing people to tell you something. And that is an awful lot of hacking, is just getting people to give you information that helps you break passwords over the phone or whatever.
It's true. And they're also going into the places, like physically going to the government buildings. I thought that was really cool how they showed that. A lot of films would just have them hacking from their room the whole time,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I just want to mention that we've got to talk about the dark actors in a moment. We're going to get back to that because I think that's important. But so the one thing I just wanted to reiterate then is, now that we've talked about the double twist and how it's revealed that the events of the movie did actually happen and all the people were real, that ending with him with Marie, I was a bit like, she has given you no indication that she likes you. I do not understand why she's here. I do not believe this relationship at all, or why she's on the boat with you.
Maybe this is the thing, actually. Let's give it a bit more credit. Maybe he told the story the way he told it so that it would appear realistic that she wouldn't have known who he was. Whereas maybe he's just been in contact with her and been friends with her since school.
Yeah, see, this is the problem with Baron Bodor and Jan Fries, is they're good enough writers that they've written themselves a bulletproof alibi for writing a bad romance. It's like, God damn it, I can't really criticize this, because the natural response is, well, that's just the story that he told the police officer. But if I was that police officer when he told me that story, I'd be like, that's not a believable romance at all. Like, that's like, come on, put some effort in. But that bothered me. Okay. That's out of the way. We've done our due diligence. We've talked about the actual movie. Let's talk about the people from Dark. can you, in your future, in the future of you watching movies or television for that matter, can you ever see the actor who plays Peter Doppler being in something where his relationship hasn't fallen apart? Because he plays a divorcee in this, or not divorce. I don't know if they were actually married, but they're definitely not together anymore.
Not together anymore.
And obviously in Dark, his relationship's on the rocks.
Very much.
He seems to have been typecast as man who is now alone, which it's got to be difficult.
Well, I don't even think technically in this film he is alone, but but for the purposes of this joke, yes. Yeah. Although I will say, what this film was really lacking was a little bit of Peter. He's not even called Peter, but we'll go with it. Huddled up in the corner, like weeping over a Bible. That's what this was missing.
Yeah, that's what we needed. Was that character just breaking down in tears? That would have really sold his utter desperation to me.
That's when he's at his best. Also, we at least we know, big spoilers for Dark here, guys. If you haven't seen it, turn it off, because I am going to say a very spoilery thing. At least we know which world we're in. We're in the origin world because, of course, Torben Voller has double eyes. He's got two eyes.
How did you feel about him playing someone who's supposed to be in his 20s?
Hang on, he's got two eyes in the other one too, but he's got both arms too. So
he's got both arms. Yeah. So he's he could. Do we see? Yeah, we do see both of his arms actually in this. So there's no way that it's possibly alt world Torben.
Or
but
do we see both of his hands, or is he wearing like a Luke Skywalker-esque glove?
It could be. We'll never know.
Yeah, so how old was he in this?
He's playing a character in his 20s, I think. If we're being charitable,
he's 44 in real life now.
Yeah, if we're being, okay, I'm gonna say this off the bat. I actually didn't think he looked out of place.
No, he didn't. He didn't. Yeah.
I thought he's a pretty good-looking guy. He looks quite good for his age, and maybe he's supposed to be like a PhD student in his mid-20s, maybe late 20s. But still, he's supposed to be the same age as Marie, who is clearly a woman in her mid-20s. And it's like Torben Voller just there, "Hello, fellow students." And it's like, no, that man is in his 40s.
He's a man who's too old to be the bully as he is. He also him playing the Biff Tannen of of WHOAMI did not. Well, he's actually not really the Biff Tannen, because he's kind of he is physically a bully, but he's also a bit more of a kind of egotistical intellectual dickhead than Biff was. He wouldn't be. He's not a Biff Tannen. Maybe he's kind of like Army Hammer in The Social Network, maybe. But
yeah, there's a bit of Army Hammer. Maybe he's a cannibal as well. Actually, we don't ever. That would certainly make him more villainous as well if we had that confirmed.
Yeah, but yeah. So the boys did us proud. I think they did a good job. He fit in all right. He was too old. Let's be honest. I think that, or maybe, who knows? Maybe he actually was meant to be younger, but in the retelling of the story, this is the thing they can do now. In the retelling of the story, the details were made to make him a couple of years older. Exactly. So that he would look less good for Maria.
Those goddamn Baron Bioda and Jan Fries have done it again. They've twisted all of us. Talking about people who were too old. I mean, he wasn't in Dark, but Tom Schilling. I'd like. Everyone in this movie was too old for the part they were playing. I got the impression Tom Schilling was supposed to be in his early 20s, and he's 40 years old now. He was way too old for the part.
When was this made? Was this made 2014?
2014, so it was 8 years ago. So he was in his early 30s when he made this.
Well, I think they were all supposed to be sort of young, early 20 students, weren't they? So yeah. So it's one of those things. Do they look as bad as Tom Welling in Smallville? No, they don't. But
I mean, that's your high watermark for people playing characters that they are inappropriately aged.
14 years old he was in that first season of Smallville.
All 14-year-olds look like Tom Welling in that first season. I don't know. You're a teacher. You're supposed to know these things.
14 years old. Tom Welling was 28 when he played that.
Yes. is so funny when you watch it. It's like, I know he's Superman, but even so, like, that is a ridiculous 14.
You can't hide the fact that he's 14. Like, he was a freshman in high school. Like there's no hiding it. Like, that's what age he was.
6'3". Like,
he didn't look any different. Like, he was meant to, at the end of the season, he was like 24, and he didn't look any different whatsoever.
Yeah, they just give him a beard, and it's like, there you go, he's aged up now. Yeah, there were none of that level of kind of shattering the verisimilitude of the world that they created. But
well, all I'll say, at least Maria was in her 20s, because God knows that I'm so lucky that that I was a teenager when I was watching Smallville, because the girls that were the same age as him were 25-year-old women, and I'll just say that's very strange. They're meant to be 14 as well.
Yeah. There's a Smallville.
Even Game
did
of
some
Thrones
weird stuff.
aged up Daenerys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they made the wise choice to be like, maybe we don't need to have a 14-year-old girl in a sex scene in this movie or in this television series. Maybe
Smallville were like, no, we're keeping her 14, but she's going to be played by a 25-year-old woman.
Yeah, just to confuse all the
very
teenagers watching this.
Very strange.
But yeah, I'm trying to think if I've got anything else to say about this. Really, I think we've covered most of it. Really,
Yeah.
I have to say though, generally speaking, I enjoyed it. I thought it was good fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was low budget, but in a way that I don't think hindered it, and I thought it had some moments of real kind of like artistic craft in the sort of visual presentation. So what would you give this out of 5 if you were forced to give it a score?
Tempted just to go 5 because of who made it. I'm going to be honest with you. But I know that would I don't want, when 1899 comes out, everyone just to think that I'm saying I love it just because of Dark. So I have to be honest. I'm going to give it 4 though. I did enjoy it. Like, and maybe there's a bit of that like foreign language mystique to it, which makes me rate it higher if it was made in America. But I think it is a 4-star for me. You know what I mean? I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it a 3. I think that if they'd have dropped the Marie relationship, I probably would have enjoyed it more, just because I didn't really feel like that served any purpose in the storytelling.
Are you switching us here? Are you going to say, oh, but actually I forgot, now it's a 4? Are you switching us?
No, I don't have the kind of forethought necessary to pull off something like that. I wish I did. I wish it did, but unfortunately I'm not Baron Boyd or Jon Fries. I don't have that twist in me to pull off. But I think it's good. I like it was a solid 3-star movie. I enjoyed it. I thought what it wanted to do, it did very well, and it's really interesting to see these two make a bit of a more it's funny that even when they're making a conventional movie, they can't quite resist the urge to just have a few twists in there.
Yeah.
Like they want to play with narrative, even at this early stage, or relatively early stage of their careers. But it's a good movie nonetheless, and well worth seeking out if you can bloody find a copy of it somewhere. Which I think is going to do it for us here this week on the Best Movie Podcast Ever, which leads us very naturally to answering one simple question, as we always do, and that is, Anthony, what's your favourite movie this week?
My favourite movie this week is WHOAMI.
Oh, I'm just going to say Fight Club. Just because it's good fun. It's a good fun movie. I haven't actually seen Fight Club in a long time. I wonder if that holds up. I suspect not, to be honest.
Well, I haven't seen Fight Club in so long that whenever I saw a picture from it, I was like, oh, that was Helena Bonham Carter in that film? So that's how long it's been since I saw Fight Club.
Yeah, okay, it's been a while since we've seen it. Well, maybe we'll do that one day. Yeah, possibly. Maybe, probably not, though, to be honest. There's better movies out. I say, having just said that that's my favourite movie this week. Thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. You can find links to their stuff down in the description below. And thank you to you for listening/watching. If you're not subscribed already, please consider doing so. We're the Culture Cave on YouTube. We're the Best Movie Podcast Ever on podcasting apps. Get involved in the comments. Let us know if you've seen WHOAMI and what you thought about that crazy double twist. Give the show a like. It really does help. And we will see you same time, same place next week.
And cut.